Greetings, 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 good people. Welcome to episode 11 of Black Women Are Dope AF. Now, this is a storytelling series that I created to reclaim our ancestral mother's wisdom and amplify the brilliance and the beauty and the power of Black women globally. This all to remind us just how dope we are. This series also serves as a growing archive of Black women's leadership and truth across time, resisting erasure, rewriting the narrative, and making sure that we stay centered in our own story in a world where they're trying to take all of that away from us. My name is Barbara Ohuninifa. I am an intuitive channel, an author, an ancestral strategist, if you will. Everything that I create, the series, my books, my spiritual offerings, is all in service to our healing, our remembering, and our rise. In this episode, we are honoring Mama Mary McLeod Bethune, who went from the cotton fields to the White House back when, the White House actually meant a little something. And she never wavered from her mission to educate Black girls. So I'm going to share her story, tell you why I think she's dope. And side note, if y'all want me to share my sources, because here's the thing, I want you to do your own research. I want you to learn about her and every other ancestral mother that we cover in this series so that you can come up with your own reasons why you think she's dope. And you can only do that if you read and learn for yourself. I'm not talking about just go watch videos, actually do the scholarly research. So if you want to hear and see me to put in the comments the sources that I use, the actual scholarly sources that I use, let me know in the comments and I'll definitely add that in. But the point is, I'm going to share with you why I think she's dope. And, hopefully y'all will put some reasons why you think she's dope in the comments. And then stick around to the end and I'll share some tips and some medicine for Black women today that's based on the wisdom that she left for us. And we give thanks for Mama Mary McLeod Bethune and all the work that she did. So, in general, if this resonates with you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. And if you are on a healing or remembering journey of your own, check out my Cosmic Roots Oracle reading. It's a deep dive into your ancestral codes, your karmic blueprint, understanding all the reasons why you came here, why you're here, and why you're having the experiences that you are having, and what you can do to navigate it. It's one of the most powerful offerings that my ancestors and guides and I have worked together to create so far. And it's what I have used to navigate what's been a hell of a few years, really a hell of a life. And, I'm thankful for all of it. But the last few years have really been, oh, honey, you're going through some things. You're getting initiated by the universe. And I've had to use all of these resources to help me to navigate all of that. And if you followed any of my videos or read my books, kind of your girl been through some things. But anyway, the link for my Cosmic Roots Oracle reading is in the description, and you can learn more about it there. But let's get into Mary McLeod Bethune's story. What is her story? Who is she? What is she about? How does she educate a nation from the ground up? So to begin with, she was born in 1875 in South Carolina. Her parents were formerly enslaved, and she was the 15th of 17 children. I'm going to say that again. She was number 15 of 17 that her mama gave birth to. I think we need to give some praise and bow down to that mama that birthed 17 children. Now, her mother was enslaved, so the likelihood that she had any choice in that is very slim, is actually none. But Mary McLeod Bethune was the first of all those children to be born free. The rest were born in enslavement. So we know mama didn't have a choice in that. I don't know. I couldn't find more information on those siblings. Were they all from that same father, Mary McLeod Bethune's father? Not likely. Were some from the slave owner that owned them as chattel slavery? Quite possibly. But I mention that to just put in context. This is what Mama Mary McLeod Bethune was born into. This is what her mother, one generation before her, endured. And when she was born, when Mama Mary was born, her parents were sharecroppers. It was after the emancipation. Emancipation was 1865. She was born 1875. And so they were sharecroppers, which were, we were in Jim Crow. by then, or kind of transitioning into Jim Crow from Reconstruction. So there were still schools, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but sharecropping was just barely a step above being enslaved. So, and that's what her parents had to do. She herself began picking cotton at the age of 5, and she had to walk several miles every day to attend a one-room schoolhouse that was for children. It was called the Trinity Mission School, and it was founded for Black kids, Black children, by missionaries. And again, in that Reconstruction era, there were schools and resources going up very quickly as soon as emancipation was kind of in the air, was done, was confirmed, was law. The Reconstruction period was the time, and I talk about this in the last video and the last podcast about Mama Alice. But there were a number of schools that went up very quickly, most of the time understaffed, under-resourced, one room schools for children of all ages. And but she walked there to get there. Now the family could only send one child, and they chose to send her because she was always so curious and inquisitive and wanted to learn. So they saw the early gift in her. So it said that she walked 5 miles each way to go to school, not because it was fun to do it. She was trying to get her steps in, y'all. This was a child trying to get this education. So keep that in mind as I continue through and tell her story, and understand that tenacity, that resilience, what nobody gonna stop her from doing what she was here to do. A fairly older song from Beyonce comes to mind. These motherfuckers ain't stopping us, and they wasn't stopping her. Understand? That's why she's dope as fuck. Now, she got to school, and she had her first encounter with a book, and it said that some little white girl told her, "Put that down, you can't read." And at that moment, she made up her mind that with God, she was gonna learn how to read. And in general, her calling came early, around the age 10. She realized that knowledge had been intentionally denied to her people, that her people had been intentionally targeted to not learn to read, to not have access to books and education. And she saw from that point forward education as the key to Black liberation. And she believed God ordained her mission to teach. This is very similar to a lot of the ancestors that I've been talking about all 2025. Something within them, something spiritual within them, their higher power, a higher calling, let them know that the work that they were doing was ordained by God, was spiritual, was divine. It was something more than just getting a bag or bettering themselves for their own sake. It was something bigger than that. And that is the faith that they moved on. And that is the faith that Mama Mary McLeod Bethune moved on. And and it was this mission that she kept moving forward in, and we'll see how that came through, and earning her own education through, again, that faith, grit, and fundraising. And she used that to build a legacy of institutions. So she went from that Trinity Mission School to receive a scholarship to Scotia Seminary in North Carolina. And she was able to do that through white benefactors connected to that Trinity Mission School that enabled her to have the funds to go to the school in North Carolina in 1888 at the age of 13. After she graduated in 1893, she pursued missionary training at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. And there she was the only Black student, and this was in the late 1890s. Her dream was to do missionary work in Africa. But due to racism, the church said, nah, you ain't going, which is just astounding to me. They purposely only wanted white missionaries to go into Africa to preach the word. They were afraid, and this is me interpreting what was going on. They were afraid of what would happen on both sides. The African people seeing their own people return, and what it would do for the Black people going back to the motherland where we had been kidnapped, stolen, and enslaved, and seeing our own people. And the question that could possibly come up is, who's actually being a missionary to who? So they made sure that no Black people went. The same thing happened with Mama Cooper that we talked about in the last episode, in episode 10, that she wanted to be a missionary, wanted to go back into to Africa doing this Christian missionary work, and she was denied because she was Black. I think that's an interesting phenomenon that we see, and a strategy that they used. But what Mama Mary did is she said, okay, so she went back to the South. She was in Chicago. She went back to the South, and her mission became to educate Black girls in America. And she's been, to paraphrase what she said, is that when the church closed the door to Africa, she found Africa in America. And again, I said Alice. Her name was Anna. Anna Cooper's Anna Julia Coopers, that's who we talked about in episode 10. She was also rejected from this missionary work. So again, denied these religious missions gatekeeping and protecting their own interests. Really interesting to look at what's happening in the world today when we talk about these different sets um, of Christianity and their different philosophies that all seem to be very, very different from what it originally was supposed to be. Go back and look at one of the earlier episodes around the Ethiopian empress tattoo. Now that was Christian. She was Christian. The Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity was the foundation of what Christianity actually was, and she talked about it and lived it voraciously. But I digress. Moving forward, Mama Mary. So then in 1904, she moved to Daytona. I was about to say Dayton, Ohio. That's where my people moved to, not this. Daytona, Florida. And she had $1.50, a box of supplies, and an unshakable vision. She founded the Daytona Educational and Industrial School for Negro girls with 5 students. And she used reclaimed boxes, crates, and faith. Her and the kids, they built desks. They made ink from elderberries. Understand me. They took whatever resources they had. She took whatever resources she had, making ink from elderberries. I'm just flabbergasted at that. And sold baked goods to fund supplies. She taught literacy, home economics, hygiene, Black history, and empowerment. And I'll talk a little bit more about how she brought this school to fruition. Again, literally with $1.50, she made it work, and resources and networking and fundraising and all the things. And then she moved forward and grew that school into Bethune-Cookman University. And also her work placed her at the center of national Black leadership. In 1923, she merged her school with Cookman Institute, which was a Methodist school for Black boys in Jacksonville. And together they formed the Bethune-Cookman University, a co-educational institution and one of the first fully accredited colleges for Black students in the South. Historically Black College, HBCU. In 1935, she founded the National Council of Negro Women, NCNW, unifying over 30 Black women's organizations. Understand how powerful that is. When you have disparate, different organizations, each with their own leader, each with their own mission, that's beautiful because everyone can focus in their lane. But having an overarching council, an overarching organization that unifies them, that makes the work that they all do individually, collectively more powerful. And the same would apply today. The National Council of Negro Women, they address voter suppression, health disparities, child welfare, and global Black womanhood. Oh my goodness, sounds like some of the same issues we're still facing today. We still need to unify on today. Only some of the issues that we're seeing are for us and about us, but the whole world, this whole country, every ethnicity has some issues, has some concerns. But our people in our work, Black women, we have some of these same issues. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the part where she went to the White House, Franklin D. Roosevelt appointed her director of the Negro Division of the National Youth Administration. She was the only Black woman in FDR's Black Cabinet. So the Black Cabinet was a group of African American advisors that helped shape the New Deal policy for Black communities. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what the New Deal policy is and what that was, because if you like me, you ain't paying no attention to this in history. But the thing is, we're living it right now. We're living the dismantling of those New Deal policies that benefited all Americans and that people like Mary McLeod Bethune fought to make sure it also benefited Black Americans. And we today in 2025 are witnessing the dismantling of all of those policies and protections that were put in place during that time period. She also advised presidents like Hoover and Roosevelt and Truman, and even later Eisenhower's, always representing the voice of Black women. So that's why I'm saying she went from the cotton fields to the White House, and she ain't forget where she came from. She ain't forget her mission. She ain't forget what she was born to do. She was on task, on purpose. She understood the assignment. So let me take a step back. What was the New Deal? So the New Deal, again, Franklin D. Roosevelt, I believe this was in the 1930s. Yeah, 33 to 39. The New Deal was a series of laws and government programs and economic reforms that President Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR, if you ever hear that name floating around, or those initials, between 1933 and 1939. And he implemented those laws, programs, and reforms to address the devastation of the Great Depression. The country had collapsed again, kind of like we've seen it on its way to collapse right now in 2025. At that time, after the Great Depression, unemployment had exceeded 25%, banks had failed, family savings were wiped out, farmers lost land, people were starving. And mind you, this is everybody. This was the white majority. This was the people supposedly that this country was for, not the super rich, the billionaires that we see in progress doing the same thing now, but they wiped out everyone else that was below that. So these stats that I'm talking about is what impacted white people. Now, multiply that towards a factor of, I don't know, 5, 6, 10, 20, and then that was the impact on Black people. Now, the New Deal wanted to rescue the economy and provide relief through what they called the 3 Rs: relief, recovery, and reform. So there would be emergency aid for the unemployed and the poor, relief. Programs to rebuild and restart industry and agriculture, recovery, and long-term changes to prevent future depressions, like implementing Social Security and labor laws. This was the reform. Again, all of these programs are literally being dismantled as we speak here in 2025. And some of the specific New Deal programs from back then were Cillian Conservation Corps. So there was job for young men doing environmental work, massive public jobs works like roads and schools and libraries, Social Security, retirement income and support for the elderly, the unemployed, and the disabled. And again, Black workers were often excluded, which is why, and even for the young men, the Civilian Conservation Corps, Black men were often excluded. I mean, let's just say always excluded. But this is why FDR created this Black cabinet to kind of consult on how they could do it better. I mean, we always trying to teach them how to be humans, aren't we? But that's where we were. And then there was the National Youth Administration, which gave work and training to youth. And this was the program that Mary McLeod Bethune led for Black youth. Now, it mattered. This whole New Deal situation, it helped millions of people, but Black Americans, as usual in this country, was systematically denied full access. The programs excluded domestic and agricultural workers, which is primarily the work that we held as Black people in the South: domestic workers and agricultural workers, meaning sharecroppers and maids, and everything in between. White officials enforced programs with racist policies. We know that. But for the first time, the federal government engaged with Black communities at scale with this Black cabinet and with people like Mary McLeod Bethune. So she did a thing. He being FDR, appointed her to lead the Negro division of the National Youth Administration. And that made her the highest ranking Black woman in federal government at the time. Stick a pin in that and understand, as they're dismantling the federal government, as they have taken the jobs of so many federal workers, it is Black women who are the most impacted by that because of our positions, even now in this day and age that we hold in federal governments. Now, Mary McLeod Bethune, she secured training, jobs, and scholarships for hundreds of thousands of Black youth. We give thanks to Mary McLeod. Not only was she educating through the schools that she taught at before she even opened her own schools. I mean, she didn't just go right into it. I didn't dive into all of those, but she was teaching at a number of schools before she decided to open her own schools. And then in opening her own school and then expanding that and partnering with the Cookman, she did so much for us. And then in addition, impacting the federal government and the laws and the programs, making sure that Black people weren't left out of that, Black youth weren't left out of it. She advised on policies and lobbied for civil rights, education, and the fair treatment of Black workers. Mary McLeod Bethune did the damn thing. Again, at the age of 10, she realized her assignment and she unapologetically walked it out. And we give thanks for her tenacity, for her resilience, for her dopeness, because she definitely was. Now, it's interesting to me, and this always is something that I dig into. Let's talk about as she was doing all of this, what was happening in her personal life. So she did marry and she did have a child. She married Albertus Bethune, that's where she received that name, Bethune, in 1898. But their paths kind of diverged as her calling expanded. He was an educator, a fellow educator from South Carolina. And initially, their marriage reflected these shared values and around racial uplift in education. Kind of reminds me initially of the marriage that Ida B. Wells had. She had 4 children, she had a marriage, but it was very unique in that he supported her doing the work that she did. But as Mary's work grew, especially when she founded her Daytona School for Girls, their visions diverged. Now, they separated around 1907 and she never remarried and she did have a son. Her son was born in 1888. Sorry, 98. So 99. Geez, so I'm just messing this time period up. I'm trying to make her had a baby before they got married. But they got married and then she had a baby a year later. And she pretty much was a single mother. She took him with her with all the work that she was doing. And she was building the school and she was fundraising and doing all this work that I'm going to talk about a little bit more of what it took for her to build that school. But she proved without trying to prove anything, she just did what she had to do, that you can be a mother and also build a nation. They weren't separate things. And as a mother myself, I know the fact that she was doing the work to build the nation, to make the nation and life better, even for her own child. In addition to all the other children she was educating, that was a motivator for her. I would imagine. She didn't necessarily say that specifically, but as a mother, I could imagine. And her son actually contributed and continued to be a part of that. Now, let's talk a little bit more about her husband. When she founded that Daytona Educational and Industrial School for Negro girls in 1904, it was intense labor. She had to fundraise, she had to show up as the leader, she had to have a public presence, and that was required for her to build this legacy, to build the school. But it created tension between her mission and her marriage. Now, from her letters and her biographies and things that she's written, and others have researched about her, Albertus, her husband, wanted a more traditional family life. He expected her to focus primarily on being a wife and a mother. So it was all good. And I'm going to put my flavor into this. It was all good when it was, okay, we're building this thing that's cute for our people, but now you're starting to do too much. Now you're starting to overshadow me. But Mary was called to public leadership, which required independence, constant travel, and control over decision making. She could not wait to ask her husband if she could go, take this meeting, or if she could go, because mind you, you wasn't picking up a phone, you weren't doing a Zoom call. If you were meeting with people to move your work forward, you were traveling to meet with people. It took lead work. It took you physically showing up in different spaces and places to get it done, what she had to get done. So that meant he could not be the focus and the center of her attention. She was often away building donor relationships, rallying community support, managing the daily operations of the schools, roles that put her in a male dominated and often white spaces because she had to get the money. She had to navigate all of that. And so they formally separated around 1907, and she kept the name because it had become associated with her school and vision. I understand that, sis. Mm, 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 mm. That's a story for another that's another podcast, that's another video. And then she raised her son, Albert Jr., primarily on her own, and she embraced that choice with clarity. Don't think that she was a victim or she walking alone and it's just this destitute image of a single Black woman that they try to put on us now. She made that choice. What she was there to do, the mission that she was there to do was bigger than falling into somebody's definition of what it meant for her to be a woman. She made that choice. But I don't know why y'all be thinking just because she's single means she wasn't getting it in. I'm just saying. That kind of situation, it's easy to find that as a woman. But she matters. Her story matters because she built power without a blueprint. She reminded us, her existence reminds us that an educated Black woman is unstoppable. And expand your definition of educated. It does not mean necessarily that you go through the institutions and get the degrees, although, yes, do that. Maybe it's certifications. Maybe it's learning how to do a thing. Maybe it's reading and self study. Whatever it is, learning as much as you can, not only about technical skills about how to do things, but about who the fuck you are, who you come from, the Black women that have shaped this planet. Knowing all of that makes you unstoppable. And we give thanks to Mary McLeod Bethune for giving us that legacy. So let's talk a little bit about why I think she is dope as fuck. Whew. First of all, reason number one. And again, do your own research. Let me know if you want me to leave my resources, and I will. Let me know in the comments. And if you have found and know and have your own opinion of reasons why you think she's dope, leave them in the comments. Let's get into it. Let's share this. So my first reason I think she's dope is that she turned a dollar into a dream, a university, and a platform for Black girls. She often has been known to say, I leave you hope, the future is yours. Again, she started with $1.50 and some boxes. She insisted that Black girls deserved academic, industrial, and civic training. Her first classroom in 1904 was built using discarded materials from local Black construction workers, rail yards, and grocery stores in Daytona, Florida. So here's how it came together. She scavenged wooden crates, orange shipping boxes, and scrap lumber that had been tossed by nearby rail depots and orange packing houses. Now, mind you, she in Florida, and Florida's citrus industry was booming, and that waste from that booming citrus industry became her school's foundation. Local Black carpenters and laborers, some of whom she had met through church networks, helped her and the girls by volunteering their time and skill to convert the scraps into desks, tables, benches, chalkboards. And I already mentioned she used elderberries to make ink. I don't know why that is so mind blowing to me. I mean, elderberries just have so many uses. It's also good for your immune system and things too, but I digress. And again, her faith, her charisma, her organizing genius, because she didn't do all of this on her own. She pushed forward, but she rallied support from the community, from white people, from Black people, from all the people to get done what she needed to get done to manifest her vision. Even when the Daytona officials tried to ignore her or even oppose her, she still got it done. Look at Goddess. The other reason why I think she's dope as fuck is that she founded and led organizations that gave us, as Black women, political and global voice. She's been known to say the true worth of a race must be measured by the character of its womanhood. Ooh, sit with that for a minute. What y'all out here doing? How you standing up? How you being? Through the National Council of Negro Women, she organized voter drives, community health, war support, because mind you, she lived through 2 world wars. And she supported international advocacy. She brought domestic workers, educators, and activists all together as one powerful collective. And that's again another theme that we're seeing. We cannot be divided as people through class. That's what's happening in this broader scheme of the United States. They keep trying to make it seem like it's about race, but really it's about class. They duping their own people. The lower class white people are being duped. This is about class. This is about the oligarchs. When Black people have succeeded is when we um, took away those barriers and looked at all of us and understood that we are all as one. And that's part of the work that she did. And we give thanks to Mary McLeod Bethune. Another reason why I think she is dope as fuck is because she sat at the tables of U.S. presidents, but she ain't forget who she represented. She ain't get up in there and get excited about this idea of her proximity to whiteness, her proximity to the stolen power. She understood what it was. She understood her role and her position. She said, I am the child of former slaves. I'm not ashamed. I'm proud. She advised FDR, Truman, and others on race, education, and civil rights, and she was the only Black woman at the policy table. So there were other Black men in this Black cabinet. She was the only Black woman. And know and understand when you look at the image, even the image that's on the screen now, if you are watching, she was regal. And she carried herself with regal discipline. She didn't ask for inclusion, but she arrived as a representative of her people, and you weren't going to deny her. Because the reality is she was going to get it done with or without your help. She's moving forward. She's getting it done, much like Black women do. And I give thanks to my alma mater, Historically Black College, Clark Lane University, with that motto, find a way or make one. You don't even understand how many situations that has taken me through as well. Now, the another reason, well, I'll say this is the last reason I'll give, and I would love to hear yours. The another reason why I think she's dope as fuck and why she's on this list is that she refused to shrink herself. She refused to shrink herself or her calling to fit the idea of what it meant to be a woman or to be in a marriage or to be a wife. And she built a movement while raising her son as a single mother. When her husband couldn't walk the path with her, she kept walking. She later reflected that she didn't want to be quote unquote owned in a marriage where her work had to be secondary. Paraphrasing her words from multiple interviews, she basically said, my husband was a good man, but he could not walk with me into the dream I was called to build. So many of us, and I'm slipping a little bit into the wisdom now. So many Black women play small, not only because society and the world is telling you to, but because our marriages, our mates, our husbands, the men in our lives want us to play small. They have fully bought into the patriarchy that was never a part of our African culture before Africa was colonized, before we were enslaved. They have fully bought into it. And there's a great number of us who are buying into that as well. And I'm gonna take a little detour and even say that in my lifetime, I have had many women, some white, but a lot of Black women from different areas, whether it was white women in the Christian church. I'm sorry, Black women in the Christian church. I was not in a church with white women. Black women in the Christian church, Black women in African spiritual traditions and elays, Black women in corporate America that all basically gave the same message is of be a little bit less, be a little bit smaller, be a little bit shrink a little bit more, submit to your husband, despite what his qualifications may be, despite who has what gifts and talents. That was a message that I actually received from a lot of women and women who look like me from different religious practices. We have all drunk that Kool-Aid of misogyny and misogynoir, and it's time to cleanse it out. Mama Bethune, Mama Mary McLeod Bethune, did not succumb to that. She had a mission, she had a purpose, she had a destiny, and she was not going to delay, defeat, or shrink, or even cut herself off from that destiny so she could fit into something else. So their separation wasn't scandalous or hostile, but was a mutual recognition that their paths had split. They weren't going on the same path. So she raised a son, built a school, and led national organizations and showed the world and showed us, because, fuck the world, showed Black women in her generation and future generations that she hadn't even seen yet, like us, that Black womanhood was never about playing small, can never be about playing small. And know and understand whenever I'm doing these, my guides and ancestors are talking to me as well. We all getting the medicine today. And again, her life was really about showing us that we can do the impossible and we don't have to wait for permission or partnership. Because a lot of y'all out there waiting to get what we think is the perfect position, and having the husband and then the children and your path may not include that, or may include it all out of order in different paths, in different ways. But the real mission is figuring out who the fuck you are. What did you come here for? What are the experiences that you're having? This is some of the things that I get into in my Cosmic Roots Oracle reading. And even what kind of partners. That's not the focus of it, but sometimes when we have karmic debt that involves our partnering, that's an area we have to explore. And trust and believe, honey, every type of karmic debt that shows up in terms of numerology, because that's part of the methods that I use, every type of karmic debt that there is, your girl got experience with it, either as one of my main numbers, a side number, or a significant personal year or essence cycle. I understand them. And, my guides walk me through the things. But I digress. Getting back to, I just think the fact that she did not shrink herself, she made difficult choices. She did the work. She said, I'm not going to succumb to, and just thinking about the time period that she was in, being a wife and a mother was all that they wanted women to aspire to. That's all that this current administration wants women, or at least white women, to aspire to. Because, they're trying to say they're race and all that. But she said, no, no. My job is to educate Black women, is to educate Black girls, to educate Black people. We give thanks. Mama Mary McLeod Bethune, we give thanks. So now I've given you a little forbearing, a little forethought, a little vision of what her wisdom and her medicine is. But let's just talk about it. I'm going to go through 3 points. The first piece of wisdom that I see from what she's left for us is that build what you came to build. Build what the world says we don't deserve. Build what the world says we can't. Say, okay, and build it anyway. With your faith, everything is possible. Or specifically what she said, without faith, nothing is possible. But with faith, nothing is impossible. And that faith can be in a higher power, in whatever gods that you follow, whatever name you give to God, whatever that is for you. That faith can be in your ancestors. But at the end of the day, in your day to day, in getting things done and all the steps, like she's out there collecting scrap wood and crates to build desks. Her faith had to be in her ability to do it. Her faith had to be in herself and the God that was within her. And so I encourage you that that's where your faith needs to be as well, and as well as in spirit and in goodness and in love. She taught us that obstacles weren't signals to stop. They were supposed to be invitations to imagine bigger. So if you got an obstacle, you got to make your dream, your goal bigger, so that obstacle becomes nothing to your dream, because your dream is so much bigger than that. So what's the medicine? Start with what you have and build with excellence. She had $1.50. She had $1.50, and she built what ended up being Bethune-Cookman College, excuse me, Bethune-Cookman University, off $1.50. Lots and lots and lots of work and people and fundraising and all the things in between. But she started with what she had and she kept going. She built with excellence. And reject this idea of scarcity. Black brilliance multiplies when it's nourished by your mind, nourished by your love, nourished by your daily, consistent actions. Not from a place of burnout, but from nourishing and nurturing the dream that you came here to manifest. So the medicine is build anyway. Her wisdom, have faith and dream bigger. And your medicine is build it, do it, keep moving. New schools, new tables, new maps, new businesses, new approaches. Do the thing you came here to do. Don't wait for permission. Yes, yes. Another piece of wisdom that I take from her and her Mama Mary McLeod Bethune's work is that Black women are the architects of progress. Whenever something is moved forward in a way that benefits our communities, our families, our communities, nations, populations, there's Black women somewhere in the mix of that as architects of it. Now, when she trained Black girls, she didn't just train them for jobs. Damn sure not just for, domestic jobs. Even though domestic jobs, there is honor in that as well. But she went the full circuit. She trained Black girls for leadership, self-respect, political power. She saw all of the combination, whether it was mothering, motherhood, teaching, organizing, all of it was a revolutionary act, leading. So the medicine from that wisdom that Black women are architects of progress is to mentor fiercely, protect our youth, and shape the future by shaping our people. In general, that just means you get educated and educate your babies, educate your nieces and nephews, educate the children around you, educate each other, educate yourself. Understand what your contribution is to progress because you're here for a reason. You didn't just stumble upon being born, stumbled all up out your mama. You came here for a reason. Damn sure in 2025, you came here for a reason. You could have came when after all of this Wahala is over. So know that you, as a Black woman, are an architect of progress, an architect of creation, really. So shape the future by shaping your people. You shape the people by shaping yourself. Know who you are and walk in that knowingness. Okay, last piece of wisdom from Mama Mary McLeod Bethune. By my estimation, because you may have other wisdom that you would glean, leave that in the comments too. You don't have to sacrifice your path and purpose to keep a man or a mate. Whew. You do not have to sacrifice your dreams, what you came here to do, the business you came here to start, the education you dream of achieving, the life you dream of having. You don't have to sacrifice any of that in order to stay dateable, to stay marriable, to stay in a marriage, to stay in a relationship. She said, I had work to do and could not afford to let personal loss be a distraction. She chose her purpose over patriarchy, and she stayed loyal to her dream even when it meant walking unpartnered. And notice I say unpartnered because it does not mean she was alone. She was far from alone. If she had, I don't know if she had male suitors, but knowing what I know about people and human nature and being in the South, she had choices. I'm just say that. But it did not, being unpartnered did not mean being alone, and it damn sure didn't mean being lonely. She chose to walk her path unpartnered, which many of the Black women activists did because to be partnered meant to shrink, meant to fit into this definition of what it meant to be a wife during that time period and shit, even now. She showed us that Black women can raise family, lead institutions, and keep their names and visions intact. Now, she took her husband's name and, because she had already started building with it, she kept it, which again, I identify with. I had already published a book under my married name, so we went on and kept that after the divorce. But so her wisdom, you don't have to sacrifice your path and purpose to keep a man or a mate. And the medicine from that is wholeness isn't optional. Choose your full self every time. If love demands you shrink, just know that ain't love, that's control. And release this lie that you have to choose between having and receiving love and building and leaving a legacy. Your legacy, not legacy. I mean, you marry somebody that got some money, okay, that becomes yours too. But you still have your own legacy, your own purpose. Your purpose was not to just marry money, if that's the path, a part of the path. And you're not less if you walk your path solo. They got us out here thinking that there is something wrong if you choose to be or find yourself unpartnered. They are out here, the patriarchal men, cis white men, really, and the cis black men have, uh, many have adopted the same point of view. Women are choosing not to get married because why? Anyway, the point is the medicine. You're not less for walking your path solo. I'm stopping that because that's a whole other podcast. You are proof of divine assignment, and it may not include being partnered all the way through. Just do what you came here to do. If it includes the other, great. Like my daddy used to say, that's icing on the cake. But it ain't the cake. You might like some icing. Yeah, you go ahead and buy some icing and just eat some icing. But the cake is your life. The cake is your purpose. The cake is the thing that you came here to do and all of the experiences that gives you the ability to do what you came here to do. And all the experiences that push you into doing what you came here to do. I'm just saying, choose you. Choose your full self every time. Do not shrink or break off pieces of yourself so that you can fit someone else's definition of what they think you should be. Yes, yes. And we give thanks to Mary McLeod Bethune. We give thanks to Mama Mary. We give thanks to her sacrifice, for her work, for her resilience, for her intelligence, for her educational dopeness. We give thanks for the legacy that she have left behind for us. We uplift her name, we uplift her legacy, and we invoke the wisdom that she left for us within our own lives so that we can walk with that same tenacity. Take a deep breath. We aren't meant to do the remembering alone. I hope content like this helps you, sparks you, reminds you in whatever small or large way of who you are. And if you want to go deeper, you can book a Cosmic Roots Oracle reading with me. It's like sitting down at the table with our collective ancestral mothers kikiing. I mean, it gets serious too, but joy is always a part of the situation. And so you sitting at the table with your collective ancestral mothers, ours, because we all have collective ancestral mothers. You go back far enough, we all come from the same mother, just saying. And at the table is also your direct ancestors, your own personal ancestors. And your higher self is sitting at the head of the table. And it's all to show you your soul map back to self. Because the reality is, we all forget when we come here, and life gets us even further and further away from it oftentimes. But there are mechanisms, there are tools that can get us back aligned, that can give us a map back to ourselves. So you can check that out. Again, the link is in the description. You can also check out my books. Links are also in the description. You can get them on my website or you can get them on Amazon. All the links are in all the places. And, with those books, I poured everything into those pages, my survival, my healing, my truth, and I wrote them for you as well as for myself so that I can remember myself, so that I can remember. It all started with my ancestors and my higher self trying to get me to remember who the fuck I am. And in doing so, my mission, my purpose, my assignment was to help other Black women to remember as well. And if you're not a Black woman, but you are supportive, you're one of our co-conspirators, that reading and the books can help you as well. But the point is, everything that I do is about supporting Black women and remembering. And subscribe, share this with another dope Black woman like yourself, and walk like someone prayed you forward. Because you know what? They did. And as always, until next time, take good care.